Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Edge. I'm Chris Bishop. It was a dream that began in his parents' garage 20 years ago. It was a dream nurtured in the explosion of the IT industry. It made him a fortune and a leading figure in the industry. Here in the studio today, we are very lucky to have with us JJ Milner. Do welcome, but without further ado, let's take a look at their new offices in Rosebank, Johannesburg.
Global Micro started in 1994 as a one-man show, but today it's a renowned IT service provider. Brad Bernstein, Operations Director at Global Micro, gave us a bit of a background behind the organization.
Global Micro was started by our CEO, JJ Milner, with a partner at the time, Lance Leserson. They started selling computers out of their garage and slowly but surely built up a company to where it is now, where we've got 22 staff members plus a subsidiary of another 6. So we've got 28 people working in our office today.
The company prides itself in providing solutions for small to medium-sized organizations, enterprises and multinationals.
The company focuses primarily on software as a service or cloud services, so we provide hosted services. Now, while the word cloud is quite a new term that it's only come about in the last 2 to 3 years, it's not a new technology. In fact, in 1999, Global Micro was one of 5 pilot customers around the world to trial hosted exchange for Microsoft. So we've actually been doing hosted services for 13 years.
Bernard Kerr, Head of the Product Development at Global Micro, gave us some insights on how they design their products.
One of the primary focuses when designing a product is definitely to design it for the local market. Previously, there have been some issues around the bandwidth, especially with cloud services, companies not being able to afford these services. Now with bandwidth being reduced and our services being housed in local data centers, it definitely allows SMEs, enterprise markets to be able to take the benefits of these products because it's housed locally. A key defining product that we designed locally was we had the McAfee data center. We built a local instance of it, which allows our customers to have better SLAs and for us to control the flow of traffic on a local perspective opposed to internationally.
Bit of the inside there on the company with the man who started selling computers from his garage. Now, with me in the studio, I have the man himself, JJ Milner, the founder of Global Micro Solutions. So just before we talk about your humble beginnings, you're from a long line of entrepreneurs. In fact, your great-grandfather started out in South Africa in the 1920s.
He and his partner started a household name, the OK Bazaars.
And in those days, you know, how sort of pioneering was that in the retail market?
Well, I think you needed to be bold. Right? And a lack of self-esteem and guts and maybe a little bravado never hurt anybody. But they were sound businessmen and they understood retail and they knew how to make it work.
And their humble beginnings, I mean, you know...
They were originally from Lithuania and Latvia.
And do they ever tell you about how they started out?
We get anecdotes. We actually enjoy sort of Friday night dinners when a story comes out. It just pops out of the woodwork, and we're continually amazed at what these men have done. It takes a certain breed of character.
To share one with us.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. When the OK built their first double-story store, there was a dispute over the escalators and whether the price should move and whether what they should do about it. And then the war broke out, and they wanted to delay delivery. And of course the OK wasn't very happy. They wanted to cancel the order, and they said an order's an order. And at the end, when the war was over, they wanted to now deliver this, but they wanted to deliver it at a new price. And these are seasoned traders. They said, but you said an order and a price was a price, and they had to deliver 7 or 8 years later the escalators for this sort of price that was agreed. So they were seasoned traders, and we always hear these sort of anecdotes.
So despite the invasion of Western Europe, they said, no, price is a price.
Johannesburg is not Western Europe.
Okay, yeah. So, and then they had their ups and downs as well, because with the OK, it's a well-known chain across Africa. They had their ups and downs with it too.
Well, they actually, while my family was involved, my grandfather, Len Miller, actually took it to 300-400 stores. I don't remember the exact number. And then they sold to breweries in the 70s, 71 or 72. We can't take responsibility for what happened after that, but while it was in family hands, it was a very successful household name.
And then we come right down to the birth of you in Dunkeld, just a short drive from where we're sitting now, in the suburbs of Johannesburg. And there's been a lot of pressure on you when you were young to sort of, well, succeed and make money like the rest of your family.
I think it was self-inflicted pressure. If you have a successful family, you set yourself certain goals and certain standards, but it also gives you a certain amount of freedom. It's nice to be able to roll the dice and take chances. I actually started the business with a friend of mine, Lance Lazarson, with 5,000 Rand each. That's what we started with. We've never had to borrow money. But it does help to know that if you're in a successful family, that if the proverbial hit the fan, that you had that safety net. And so we could actually explore our potential, which was great. We never needed to rely on it, but it was nice to know that it was there and there was amazing support and there was advice if you needed it.
But what was it like, though? I mean, those early days. I mean, obviously your family were running these huge business operations and you were starting very, very small. Surely, wasn't there times when they were saying, well, are you sure you know what you're doing?
I was 17 when I started, and I think there were more questions around whether or not varsity should take a higher priority in my life, and I think they saw the potential for computers and they always encouraged me, but I never really struck that balance. I did go to university and I did get my degrees, but I was literally running a business from the time I left school.
What gave you the idea? Where did you see that gap in the market?
I wish I could say I had amazing foresight. I was a hobbyist. I loved what I was doing, and I was fortunate that what I loved doing became a worldwide phenomenon. And if you're passionate about something, you don't really feel like working. You feel like you're just playing. And 20-hour days don't feel like 20-hour days when you're doing what you love.
So this was 20 years ago. This was like the real dawn of the internet in Africa. Just tell us, how was it in those days?
Well, we didn't have connectivity like we have today. People complain about bandwidth being still expensive by international standards. It's coming down all the time. But I remember in my bedroom having a stack of modems plugged in. I didn't have a cell phone yet. They didn't exist. I used to drive home, check my tape on the answering machine to find out what my customers were doing, deal with the flack of having waited 3 or 4 hours to get home to listen to the message and go back. So it's changed. But it was a time when it was possible to know everything about the field because it was just starting. And then because we've had 20 years of osmosis, you don't really think about keeping up. It becomes a part of your DNA and you have a sense of where the markets are going. We've done many different things in IT over the years, but we've managed to track the trends, I think, because it's part of what we what we do now.
We've had one of the big IT industry men on this program, Ronnie Apteker, probably somebody you know very well. And he said when he started, one of the problems was he'd say, well, I'm selling internet, and people say, well, what is it? And they'd say, well, it's this thing where you can pass messages. So he'd sell them the thing, and they'd say, well, who can I send a message to? And he'd say, well, you send it to me if you like.
Well, Ronnie's your proverbial entrepreneur. It's his quote. I often quote him. He says, the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who jumps out of a plane with a rucksack full of silkworms and hopes they're overachievers. But you've got to kind of have that mindset and take no prisoners.
That sounds like Ronnie. But, okay, and so to begin with, then you were selling computers themselves.
Yeah, we started off selling computers, and we moved into Apple Mac. We did a lot of color printing, and then ERP systems, accounting systems. And around 99, there was this concern for Y2K and that the whole world would come to an end. And we didn't really believe that this was going to be the case, but our customers were pushing us to do this. And so we built a standby environment for them based on what you would call today cloud computing. And they liked it so much they didn't want to move off it. So we were pulled in by accident.
Because that's a story in the world. I mean, it's still one of the great stories of the world. I mean, coming to the end of the last century as a journalist, everyone was writing stories saying the world's going to come to an end, Y2K, it's all over, we're going to have blank screens on Monday morning. And nothing happened. I mean,
my toaster even worked.
What did you feel after that? I mean, you'd obviously been preparing people and getting a lot of money for it.
Well, actually not. We took the exact opposite approach. We built the standby environment because we were in danger of losing our customers. And we told them that only if they used it would they need to pay us. And we did all the tests running up to the year 2000. And the guys moved onto the platform because they preferred it. They preferred the fact that they didn't have to have infrastructure in their offices and they could connect in. But so we didn't really profit directly from Y2K and that whole marketing hype that led up to it. But ultimately it laid the foundation for our cloud business today.
And do you remember your first deal?
I do.
How much?
really small. We lost money on the first
Really?
year. We lost money on a lot of deals in the beginning. But I actually was at the gym the other day and I bumped into our first client.
Yeah.
And our third client is still a client today, Head Interiors.
Really?
Well-known, yeah, Michael Harrison's been a client since I started. So it just shows how what we've done has always stayed relevant, actually, for...
What about the rough days? So there was just two of you in a garage with a kettle in the early days.
That worked over...
Which works
yeah.
fine, and with the one with a toaster.
Yeah.
But what were the roughest days in those early days?
Banks don't understand IT companies, and to get funding, whether it be traditional credit or even just general facilities, very, very difficult to get them to understand your business. And from time to time, when you grow, the worst thing that you can do is overtrade. And so somehow we always did it, right? We always managed to make sure that we made payroll and we paid the rent. And as we grew out of the garage, what was very profitable business in a garage is not such a profitable business when you've got overheads. So we paid our school fees. But overall, we've been very fortunate, and the South African community has been very, very supportive of us.
And when you moved out of the garage, what was your first luxurious office you moved into?
And that wasn't very luxurious. We moved into the offices in Kalani. We were very proud that I actually had my own office and there was a reception area for customers. And then we went into a partnership with Internet Solutions, and we moved actually into the building next door them, and those were a big step up for us, and we had some good successes with them.
And right, fast forward to this day, turnover and staff?
Turnover, we should do in excess of 50 million turnover this next year. I think somewhere around 50, 60 million. Staff 28 people. We've actually been as much as 50 in the past. People ask me how come it's dropped, and I tell them we've invested in quality. Our salary bill is actually 10 times now what it was when we had 50 people, and that's made the difference.
Sure. Well, it's recession and a lot of things have hit the IT industry in the last few years. We'll talk about that in the wider market a lot more in the second half, but hold that thought there. It's time for a quick commercial break. More with JJ Milner when we come back. Stay with us.